So there's something special about the magic that happens in an old school gym when people with like-minded attitudes show up and their only infatuation is to make the crowd go home happy. Something special when you get to be a part of that on a weekly basis, monthly basis, however often it happens. But today is a very, very special edition of the Lion's Den. I'm blessed to join with us today the Supernova Sean Cordova. What's up, my friend?
How you doing? Glad to be here.
All right. So let's kick this thing off, man. I'm going to let you steer it your way, but for 2 seconds, let's allow me to fangirl for a minute. All right. We talked a minute ago about how wrestling, impacted my life. How at a young age it was just the soap opera you watched with your folks and stuff like this. How
Right.
I was lucky enough to watch it live in person from a young age at Abrams Fieldhouse in Fort Hood, Texas, while my dad was in the military. My quote-unquote claim to fame is I legit carried the NWA title while Kerry was the champion for that, 19 days that he was the champ.
That's cool.
So what made you get infatuated with the world of professional wrestling?
I'm guessing the Attitude Era is where everything started, because I didn't watch wrestling at an early age like some people. Like I'll hear like, oh, I started watching when I was 4 and 5 and 6. I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
I was 12 years old. I was 6th grade.
Yeah.
And everybody at that time was either a wrestling fan or a South Park fan. That was the shirts.
Right.
But I was the wrestling fan, and I had all the merchandise. But I didn't. It was weird because I didn't go through. I mean, the WWF. I don't even know if I had a shop at the time. I'm sure they did, but I didn't buy it from. I would go to you could go to Kmart
Mm-hmm.
and find a Steve Austin shirt. So I had weekly. I had my attire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was.
Back in the days when you can get a figure for $5?
Yes, and I had all of them. I had all the Jack Specific, and the ones that could bend.
The
and
Venoms and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. So I didn't get in until I was 12, and then it just took a life of its own. My mom was like, "Oh, this is just a phase. This is just going to go away," and it didn't go away. And when I was 16 years old, I said, "Hey, I want to join a wrestling school." There was one in Tyler, which was about 30 miles from my house, ran by Joey Corman and Samir. I went there, I paid the fee to do it, and here I am.
All right.
That was when I was 16, so I'm 38, so.
22 years?
Yeah.
What? No.
Things go like this, and you just keep doing it.
So legit, how do you find a wrestling school in Tyler? I mean, you don't know Joe.
Okay, I didn't know Joey, I didn't know Mike Page, I didn't know Samir. So what happened was when I was 14, I found Mike Page, I found their website, and they said they have a wrestling school. It was NAWA, and they had just started training. So the first batch of trainees was Con, Jim and I, a guy named Drunk Adam, and I think there was a guy named Sassy McBottom, and there was maybe one more. But those were, Con and Jim and I were the ones that came out of it. I was the second wave that I came in. So I was 14, and I said, "Hey, can I join?" And Mike Page was like, "No, you have to be 16." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." But he said, "You can come to the shows and you can start watching." They started running shows. I want to say it was like a Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
They would do it, I want to say weekly. So it was I started going at 14, maybe 15. It only took about a year, because I would get their VHS tapes, and I would really start studying. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, because I knew I was going to wrestling school. And the wrestling school, I think, was $100 a month. So we finally went. It made it that way. What happened was I was 14, maybe 15, and I was going weekly to the shows, and I met Con, and I met all the wrestlers, and then I turned 16, and the day I turned 16, I turned 16 in December 31st, and I was at the wrestling school at least January 10th. I mean, it was quick, because it was me and my buddy. Me and my buddy named Stephen Lewis joined, and he lasted for about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no question about it that I wasn't stopping. Looking back, it's like, man, I'm surprised that I kept going. But I was like, no, because that was what I wanted to do. He stopped for various reasons, and adios. and I just kept on training.
Right.
So yeah, I trained from my first official match was April 20th, 2002.
So 4 months into training, give or take.
Yep.
And do you remember who your first opponent was?
Gemini.
Gemini.
And he rocked me, man.
I was about to say, Gemini's
Like,
a big old boy, right?
he
Am I remembering correct who Gemini is?
Yes.
Tall, slender, black dude?
Very athletic.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was funny because, see, here's how it went down. So I didn't know that I was going to wrestle that week at the Lufkin Hoedown. So I'm talking to Mike Page on AIM, you know, the computer, and here I am talking to him on a random Friday night, and he goes, "Do you have gear?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You ready?" I said, "For what?" He said, "I have a show tomorrow. I need you there." I was like, "Okay." That night, because I'm 16, I don't even drive yet. Like, I didn't start driving until the summer when I was 16. So this was April. So this was like spring. I went into my mom's room and I said, "Hey, my mom and dad's room. I said, "Hey, can you take me to Lufkin tomorrow?" They were like, "For what?" "My first match." They were like, "Absolutely." So we jump in the car the next morning. I'd never been to Lufkin, you know. We start heading to Lufkin, and I don't know where the ring is. I don't know what we're doing. They literally, there's a crowd of people. They literally drop me off, and I start running through the crowd. It's almost like a movie. I'm running through the crowd just to finding where I need to be.
Trying to find somebody you recognize.
And then it's like literally I turn that corner, there's the ring. There's the people I know, and it's like, I'm home. Here we are.
There you go.
Yeah, it was, in hindsight, looking back, it seemed like they knew more than I knew, because that week I was working with Gemini. Like, we were running over like little spots here and there where I would like backflip over his back. Like, I would roll over like RVD would do. And I was like, okay, and I would do things like that. And then we incorporated all that into the match. So it was like, did he know?
So they were setting you up without telling you.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Did he know more about it? And yeah, we did that. And then what happened was, so this was in AWA, and I wrestled Gemini. We had a warehouse that we would train in, and we were having shows, but they weren't like all the time. So we had that one road show, Lufkin Hoedown, which was it went for a good like 3 or 4 years after. But then after that, we would have the warehouse shows, and we would wrestle in May, and then I think June, and then I think we lost the building or something happened. So then we had to figure out where we were going to wrestle.
Right.
But by September, or maybe the following year, we were back monthly.
Gotcha.
And that was all in 2002.
So let's fast forward to the infamous 8x8 wooden ring in your backyard. Tell me how this happens, bro.
Okay. It's bigger than 8x8. I want to say, honestly, it might have been it wasn't even, so it was probably like 11 by 12. It was. Okay, so I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, I would like to have a wrestling ring," and he was like, "Okay," because you got to remember, this is when I'm 14, so I want a ring, because before that, it was like the trampoline and stuff, and that's just, it's never gonna be the right thing. So like, I want a ring. He's like, "I'll build you one." He didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how rings worked. So it was all wooden. It was all wooden post, wooden frame, wooden everything, and that's just not gonna work.
So it was hard as concrete.
Hard,
because it was braced everywhere.
it was braced everywhere, and it was small. But man, there was so much we did in that ring that it was crazy.
Right.
Like, it was. Corey Summers was in that ring. Chaz Thomas, Max Lavaro.
That's what I was about to say. When did all of this start incorporating into what would be the
everyone?
TEW?
Okay, so Chaz Thomas is my cousin. Corey Summers is my nephew. Josh Max Lavaro is the cousin of Chaz Thomas, so by family,
cousin of a cousin.
Yes, it all worked. So he joined, and everyone, like, throughout the period of time, we met everyone. Like, everyone came through this, and then I moved from the city to like the country, and basically where I am now, and the stipulation, again, this is when I was already trained. Like, I already trained and everything. I was like, I would like a ring. And my dad said, okay, let's build another ring. It was never like, let's go find a ring. It was always, let's make a ring. And he built, seriously, I think it was a 20 by 20, but with everything, it probably was a 22 by 22. It was large, it was huge, and it was rock solid, and there was no spring in it, and you hit. So we did that for a minute, and we kept that ring for 3-4 years, because NAWA actually came out to my house, and we actually did shows there. So Joey would run shows, and he would bring in a plethora of wrestlers, Robert Evans and Pendragon and Spoiler 2000 and all these guys. So they came through, and then at now TEW, Texas Elite Wrestling, has begun. It started in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know what year did you come in 2010?
I think it was 9 or 10,
9 or
something
10.
like that.
Okay, so 2004 to 2000 and I want to say 9. That's when we used the very hard as a rock ring. We got a portable ring, the one we use now. We bought it from Houston, and you've picked up a ring before.
Oh yeah.
Okay, like you've bought a ring from people. It can be sketchy, and this was very sketchy. I remember.
I don't even know if you got all the pieces.
Yeah, I remember he had it all laid out on a trailer, everything, and my dad was like, "We're gonna put this together. Before we leave this house, we're putting this together." And
Your dad was smarter than me. We just loaded it on the trailer.
No, we put it all together, and we never put a ring together in our life.
Right.
But my dad was like, "We're gonna put this ring together," and the quote unquote owner of the ring said, "I'm not helping you." Fine, no problem. So we start putting it together, and then he makes his way out of the house, and he's like, "Well, I'll help a little bit." Mm-hmm. I don't know if he thought maybe we were going to put it together and then just leave. Like, oh well, we're not buying it now. No, he started helping, but it was sketchy because it was like, "Do you own this ring? Is this your ring?" Because we started seeing like boards had like it had like a person's name, and I knew the person's name. It was a guy named Holly Roller Hayes, and I'm like, I know this guy, because I had literally just worked this guy in Houston. So I'm thinking, what are we doing here?
Somebody done jacked his ring, huh?
So I made him write out a contract. Like, I mean, of course, not official by any means, but he wrote out a paper saying, "Hey, this is my..."
Kind of like a bill of sale.
Yeah, this is
thing.
my ring, and he signed it. I think I still have it. I still have it somewhere in a filing cabinet. But I was like, yeah, I want to make sure, like, I'm not leaving Houston, and then you're gonna come try to find me next week and take this ring away. But yeah, it was
the money magically be gone, right?
But yeah, as soon as we got that ring, things opened up, man. We started doing, ring rentals. That was a thing. Like Mike Page is like, "Hey, can I, rent your ring?" And then I'd take the ring. My wife and I would take the ring to, Lufkin, and we took it to Louisiana, and we started taking it. And that's fun at first. It really is.
At first.
And then it gets to a point where, like, okay, you know what? This is taxing, because not only are you putting the ring together and then wrestling, you're taking it down, then bringing it back,
and then
unloading it. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So then we started doing Gusher Day shows, and that's when really TEW. You were at the first TEW Gusher Day show?
I was.
Yes. That's when the Gusher Day show, I think, is probably the height of TEW, when we started really understanding, like, okay, people do want to see this, because we had crowds in 2005 and 6. We had a fish fry, and we had hundreds and hundreds of people. But when you get to the Gusher Days, there was one Gusher Day, I don't really know the year, maybe 2010 or 11. I'm on the apron, and Hunter DuPreston's on the apron with me. I think we're like in a 6-man tag, and it was so loud, like the audience. Like I remember, and he was literally like right here in front of me, and I turned to him and I was like, I can't even hear it. I can't even hear you. And we were like trying to talk, and it was just so loud. It's like, wow, this is incredible.
That's where you get the goosebumps.
Yes, this is cool. So yeah, and I remember one time we had a thing where, totally random, but it was me and Hunter. We did 2 Saturday shows, and we did a Sunday show. Gusher Days. Mm-hmm. They wanted us back for the Sunday show because they were trying to do something like to keep more people involved.
Yeah, because everybody always ghosted Sundays, and y'all have such a great crowd.
Yeah.
Let's do another one. Yeah.
So we put the ring up on a Friday. We wrestled twice. I wrestled 4 times technically.
Right.
And then we got in the car. We went home. We come back. So I remember the next morning we both woke up and we're both exhausted. Our bones are telling us, "What are you doing?" We get in the car and he goes. It's funny. He's like, he's passenger seat and I'm driving. He goes, "I don't think I want to wrestle today." I said, "I know, me neither." And he said, but we got to. I said, we do. This is what we want to do, right? And he was like, yeah. And then when the bell rings, you're back on. You know what I mean? It's like a, flip of a button.
It's a shot of adrenaline.
Yes.
There you go.
But at first you think, you know what? I don't want to do this.
Right.
But you do want to do this because this is what you want to do.
So Gusher Days festivities,
Yep.
we'll hit on that later when we do our little promo piece at the end.
Right.
But probably, 5 years, give or take, of Gusher Days, and it growing out at Wallace Arena.
Right. With a plethora of wrestlers. You had Rancid Jack Stevens, Mongoose, Colton Shane, Chance Wyndham, Jay Lothario, 8 Ball, Pooch, Black Train, Justin Sane, Michael Cross. I mean, the list goes on
Keep
and
going,
on and
Big
on.
Killer Khan,
Chris Katera.
Preston.
I mean, we had people that were having WWE tryouts. We had Necro Butcher showed up. We had Chewy Martinez showed up. We had all these people that were coming. Dallas guys, Christopher Hayden, Victor Tadlock, Lewis Enterprise, Mikey Malice.
Was Hayden with the backpack back then?
Yes, it was. we had so so I wrote the TEW book, and you've read it, and in the back I tried to, fill out all the people that were in it, and I guarantee you I probably missed a lot, but I got the ones. I mean, we had at least over 150 wrestlers. Seth Shaii. I mean, there's a list of names.
And then just that open door of people that wanted to be in the business, you always gave them their shot.
Yeah,
You set up the ring that Sunday morning, and
Yep.
you'd have training for 4 or 5 hours, and then y'all'd clear out and then put on a show.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And
then like Colton Shane, it was like probably one of the first train. Court Caution, of course, Court Caution. You can't forget
Good
about
Lord,
Court Caution.
Court.
Like if I ever like sat down and thought of like about a Mount Rushmore of TEW, man, it would be so hard.
900 heads on it.
Oh man, I'd have to have 4, and it would be so hard because you had so TEW. Let me tell you like this. At first, there was no fans. It was just us. We're out there just wrestling because we want to wrestle. By 2005, then there was fans. It was families, or it was tailgaters, or it was drunks. I mean, for a better word. I mean, it was just a whole. It was just a different crowd, man. And I never once. I remember this quite vividly. Some of the outsiders, didn't know how TEW was, and they were like, "Well, you know this isn't rated R." And I said, I never once told anybody that it wasn't rated R.
Yeah, it's never been rated.
No, this isn't PG by any stretch of imagination. If it gets a little past PG-13, whatever. You're bringing your kids out to here to watch free entertainment.
Right.
So if your kid hears a curse word, they hear a curse word, and that's how it's going to be, because I can't tell Rancid Jack Stevens not to cuss and not to drink, because that's his character.
Because that's who he is.
So Rancid Jack Stevens was kind of like I guess you could say like the Sandman, but he was awesome. But whereas Sandman didn't have as much wrestling talent, Rancid could back it up.
Rancid could go?
But Rancid could also be a high flyer, and he could surprise you all. Yeah. So it was
You expect
different.
nothing but hardcore, and then he goes in and puts on a clinic.
Yeah,
like, what just happened there?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what TEW had that was different. I feel like from anywhere, because we had a lot of different talent that could like intermingle with everyone. Right? Like it was like when I booked, I always thought of it like a spider web, like a comic book, where this guy hated this guy, but this guy also hated this guy, and you could weave them, and you could do tag matches and 6-mans, and they didn't always have to just have singles matches. Like you didn't have to always have it was kind of like if you remember the Raven and Tommy Dreamer storyline, mm-hmm. They didn't have to fight each other every week. You could always bring in the pit bulls, or you could always have a different
stuff from his nest.
Yeah, and you always had like the Stevie Richards, and so that's what I would always have. I would have, if I'm feuding with Jason Sky, Max Navarro doesn't like Jason Sky either, and I don't like Max Navarro, and and then you turn it into a 6-month program, and we were doing it monthly, and that takes, you know.
That's where I was about to go to kind of dive into the mind of Patrick Wallace.
Right.
You have a year out, and then you have 3 ways to get to that year out in case this dude craps out on you.
Yes.
And that's what I always found to be, you know, the measuring stick. Anytime
Like
I have a complaint, I go back, well, where's his notebook? You know, because Cordova had a notebook.
Yeah,
you know?
I never booked like straight. So like if I'm in January, I'm not, okay, now it's February, now I'm going to book, and now it's March, I'm going to book here, now it's April. No. So our big show was Texas Face Off, and that's in May. So say if Texas Face Off 7 was coming around, and I'm on 6, I already know the main event is 7. And I could probably tell you almost the main event of 8, because I already knew like where people were heading. So then I would just go backwards. So say if the main event of Texas Face Off 7, I believe it was Court Caution and Chris Preston.
Yep.
So say if it was them, and I'm at 6, I already know that's the main event, and that's where I'm getting to. So that I'm leading towards, I'm going backwards to where I am now. So it would, that's how I would figure it all out. So yeah, I had notebooks, and what I also did was I also had like a small notebook that I would keep in my pocket daily. So if I'm like doing whatever I'm doing, I always had a pen and a pad, and I'm just writing I'm writing notes, I'm writing
Something
ideas.
hit you in the head, it was there. That way you didn't have to
I'm
try
there.
to remember. It was
Yep.
there.
And when I got home at night, I would take that notebook and I would put it to another notebook so I would not forget about it. So I'd have matches in my head. If it was matches or storylines or who's the next 3 different champions. So like what I would always do, so say if Ramsey Jack Stevens won the title, I would have in 3 months, I would already have the person that's going to take the title away. But if Rancid or whoever was going good as the champ, now it's going to get backed up. So now you've held it for 6 months. If you're still doing well, whoever I had at 6 months, now they're pushed back to 9 months. It was a 3-month period. And Rancid was my longest TEW champion, and he went for almost a year. I think it was like 11 months and 9 days or something. It was hindsight. I should have just kept him, you know, at a year. But I was ready for that next challenger, and that next challenger was Court Caution, because Court Caution blew up. I remember having a conversation with a guy named Jake Payne. Mm-hmm. He had left. So when he left, Court Caution was bottom of the barrel. He left.
Your ring announcer,
yeah,
correct?
He left. Well, he might have been a manager. Yeah.
By then, yeah.
He left, and then he came back a year or 2, maybe 2 years later, and he goes, "Who's your champion now?" And I said, "About to be Court Caution." He goes, "Are we talking about the same Court Caution?" I said, "Absolutely," because he missed the growth.
The build, yeah.
There was a growth. There was a point at a time when I had Court. It was like he was going through like obstacles. I had him against Pooch. I had him against Max Lavaro. Like those were, if you can go against those 2 and you can pass, and they can tell me after the match, because I would ask them. I would always get feedback from all the guys. I'd say, "How did he do?" And they would tell me he did great. And then I was like, "Well, now you got Rancid in an unlucky 13 match," and that's. You know, you stable the dollars.
Yep. Dollar bills.
And even Rancid at the time was like, "I don't know if he's ready." I said, "He's ready." And as soon as he won the title, he put on that suit, and he went from the Court Caution that you knew to like Court Caution, the heel, the bad guy, the villain, with Tommy Jaggers in his corner. Man, there's nothing better about it. Thinking from that perspective, boom, you put him in that Rushmore, right there.
Right. It's funny you say, I think it was Texas Face Off 7, and I laughed because that was our buy-in moment for my family.
So you saw Chris Preston
get suplexed through the
bleed,
stands,
yes.
the wooden bleachers, and then bleeding like a stuck hog. I mean, it was
so much blood.
That was our buy-in moment. We had been to 2 or 3 shows before then, but that was our buy-in moment. Like, yep, hooked. All right, so we're at Face Off. I don't know. Let's go. Say 9.
Okay.
Face Off 9. We have some family tragedy goes on. You have a thought process in your head, and you realize that 10 is a good number for you, and you say, "I'm done at Face Off 10." And everybody cries and says that shit ain't cool. You know.
Right.
What was your thought process of why and how did that come about for Texas Elite to close the door, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Okay, so we got to Texas Face Off we called the last one Decade of Face Off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was 10 years. A lot of wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers were breaking down. Like Max Navarro had, at one point in time, I want to say early in his career, the doctor basically told him that his knee was not going to make it. At one point, I think they even told him, like, you had like a knee of a 70-year-old. It was something crazy, and he wasn't 70 years old. He was, he was 25. In his 20s. So it's like, that's not good. So he was wearing like some really puffy, really volleyball knee pads. But the thing about Max Navarro was, he's a big man, but he's not going to wrestle like a big man. Mm-hmm. He's going to still go off the top rope with a moonsault, because when he gets that adrenaline rush and the crowd is wanting him to do something, he's going to go off and do a split-legged moonsault, land on that knee, and he's going to be fine until the next morning.
And then not walk for 2 days.
And then he's going to call me and tell me that I'm hurt. I don't know if I'm going to be at the next show. And I'm like, okay, and I'm already like trying to figure it out, pencil it in. But by the time the show comes back, I'm good to go. Let's go again. Scratch that person out, Max Navarro's back in, and we would do that constantly, because even though he probably wanted to be out, something was bringing him in. Something was keeping him in. But at the time, in 2014, that's when we started realizing we all had families. I already had 2 kids at that time. Jason Sky had 2 kids. Max Navarro, he had 1 kid. I think maybe he had another one right on the way. Things were happening quickly. Rancid had a kid, and then people were leaving. People were like, okay, maybe it's time to take a break, right? Mm-hmm. So the best way to do it was to shut it down. And we shut it down.
And about that time, because if you letting, your inner circle know, for lack of a better term.
I let them know 1 year out.
League of Lions kind of started at that time.
Yep.
We're at the final face-off.
Yep.
Okay. And we're trying to figure out if this is 10 or 11, but
yep.
It doesn't matter. Final face-off. League of Lions has started by then.
Yeah, League of Lions started in
2 trips, a month, and trying to keep it separated enough, but a lot of stuff did merge. A lot of the first champions for League of Lions were the current champions at TEW, if I remember correctly.
Michael Cross.
And
so what month?
What did we say? September of
2013 was the first League of Lions.
First League of Lions show. So, Face Off
was in May.
Of
2014.
So
there were some weeks.
May of 13 is when it all started. Preston kind of got the ball rolling to start League of Lions about 5 months later. So for about 6 or 7 months, we're doing both shows.
Yep.
Does that sound about right?
Sometimes back to back. We do a Saturday show and a Sunday show, and we would do that for a good, at least 7 months. Yeah.
Gotcha. And a lot of the first champions for League of Lions were the current champions for TEW, to kind of have a seamless transition. Mm-hmm. You agree with that?
Because at the end of TEW, you had Michael Cross, who was the TEW champion, and he became the LOL champion. You had Corey Summers, who was starting the height that was on a rise as a.
He was innovation champion at the time, right?
No, not at the end. At the end, he was TEW champion. He was the final TEW champion of Texas League Wrestling.
That was after the fact.
No,
that was
very, very end. He was the champ. When the curtains
at
the ending of the TEW. Here's your champions, and we'll talk about what you had done. The TEW champion was Corey Summers. The tag team champions was Jeremy Preston and Chris Preston, last of the real. The last innovation champion was Max Navarro, and the elite champion was originally supposed to be Rancid Jack Stevens. What did you do?
No, I thought it was supposed to be Mongoose.
Yes.
And Rancid comes out to do a challenge that was not supposed to be for the title, and nobody let me know that, and I called it a title match. Rancid goes over, so Rancid becomes the final champion when it's supposed to be Goose.
Yes.
That was the whole.
The reason why that was supposed to be the thing was because Mongoose brought Rancid in. Mm-hmm. Mongoose was Rancid's trainer, so it was like, okay, this is your end. This is like the rivalry they had for the so long. Mm-hmm. And then you announced that it was for the title, and Rancid came back there, and he told me, he said, Cordova, I appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much. And I'm here getting dressed, and I look up and I go, what did I do?
And let me be the last champion?
And he said, oh, let me be the last elite champion. And I go, absolutely, man, no problem.
You're welcome.
And I remember I found Mongoose, and he was like, things happen.
Mongoose let me off because we've been friends since high school as well. I've known Mongoose probably 35 years. You know, it is what it is. But at least I didn't, do it for a CW Shadows.
Right. It made sense. It made sense for what it was. So, yeah, Ransom Jack Stevens was the last elite champion. But see, then after that, we also had like 2 Gusher Day shows.
Does Ransom know this, or do we need to tag him in the video?
Oh, he definitely knows it.
He knows it.
It's definitely there.
It's become the backstage rib for me, and that's the reason why I'm so anal about y'all letting me know all the particulars. That way I don't screw something up again. No.
So once the TEW was ended, we also did other Gusher Day shows, and then we did some League of Lions collaboration shows. So technically now, Court Caution is the official TEW champion. Like, he won it in a 4-way at a League of Lions show in Union Grove. It was Corey Summers when he was double champion. He had the TEW and LOL. It was Corey Summers, Colton Shane, Fantastico, and Court Caution. And Court Caution won. Okay. So that's quote unquote unofficial. He is the champion. There is no more defenses. He's the champ.
So no defense.
The championship retired with him?
The championship pretty much retired. There's no titles. Yeah.
Give me a second to work on that. No. No. So we're full-time League of Lions now.
Yep.
Like you said, we've kind of closed the book on TEW. You've had a couple of finishing the bookings. I wouldn't say a comeback show or anything like that. Just finishing.
Some of the wrestlers. So, like we were saying back in the day, some of the wrestlers came through to TEW, but some of the wrestlers from TEW came through to early LOL. So you had the Max.
90%.
Yeah, I'd say you had the Max Navarro. You had Court Caution, Tiger T, Rage. You had all these guys.
Smasher.
But then like what happened with TEW, Max Navarro was, I can't do this no more. I can't, Court Caution, I don't know if it was necessarily League of Lions itself, but it was just, Court Caution was not the same Court Caution. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying? Yes, he could do the exact same thing. And yes, it was the same crowd, but it was just, there was something that was holding him back. Maybe he's falling in and out of love of wrestling, but something wasn't clicking like it was in TEW. And Chris Preston can tell you the same thing about Court Caution, because they were 3 times. They were the team. They were unstoppable. They were attack. That was a force.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense on paper, but you can ask Chris Preston any day of the week. It made sense. Every time that they went out to the ring, whatever they were doing, it looked like they were 2 best friends.
With Preston, to kind of talk about that, it's really hard to get a wrestler to commit to a best.
Right.
Favorite match, favorite partner, favorite whatever. It's hard to get them to commit because you can get down to about 3 or 4, but how do you pick that one? And it was funny because Preston, during his lines then, he talked about, Court. He talked about, the East Texas Wrecking Crew with Murdoch and stuff like that. Of course, he had to bring up Mayhem Mafia, the run they had in early, League of Lions. But to make him pick one, it was just wasn't happening.
Right.
It was so hard to make it happen. It's funny because I try to put people on the spot. What's your favorite match? Well, I got 12 to choose from.
Yeah.
You pick one of your favorites out of my 12.
See, I think it would be easier for me. I could tell you the 3 opponents. It's Max Navarro, it's Jason Sky, and it's Corey Summers. Regardless of wherever it is, those are the guys. I could go out there. Yeah, I could go out there with Chris and Justin and all these guys too, but those 3, I don't even have to talk about it.
I was about to say,
it's
right
there.
Now, without getting too much personal life, Jason Sky, Chaz Thomas, you probably haven't physically seen in 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in 5 years.
Okay, so 5 years.
If he showed up tomorrow.
If he shows up for this reunion show we're about to plug, I guarantee Roxbury Boys would own it.
Yes, we would do
today.
It. If he showed up currently, right now, as of March 17th, he's MIA. And we don't know where he is.
Right.
He hasn't talked to his sister. He hasn't talked to Max Navarro. He hasn't talked to me. He hasn't talked to Corey Summers. So we don't know.
But the invite is out for
The invite
April
has
20th.
been out to everyone,
Mhm.
and there has been a lot has responded. There's been some that they have other reasons why they can't be a part of it, and I get it. I understand. It's been 10 years.
But we'll dive on
We'll
that.
get there. We'll get
yeah,
there.
I feel like we're chasing that rabbit to the end real quick.
Yeah.
League of Lions year 1. We go around. You're one belt away from being a Grand Slam champion in here.
Yeah.
Which is
Lionheart title is the title that I am seeking.
So Ethan Daniel
Yeah.
with no S. Watch yourself.
Right.
No.
I have a 4-way with Ethan Daniel coming up, so that could be it. But Keith,
Are we getting there at the Wrestling Classic?
But here's another thing about the Lionheart title. Keith Blaylock was the ultimate champion, and I battled him here and there and everywhere in a lumberjack match. We were in a big rivalry, and he kept it. He kept it. So I mean, I was the villain king. I had the cult behind me or whatever.
Right.
And I still couldn't get. I had the Book of Cordova behind me too, and I still couldn't get the job done. So Ethan Daniel, I have a bone to pick, but
Right.
yeah, it's
hard
and you're talking about the Superplex too, yes.
Yeah. So
Fun
we're
times.
going through League of Lions, going through several different persona changes.
I won the trophy.
Finalized Invitational.
I cashed the trophy in on Chris Preston. Won the title the same night. I win the trophy again a few years later, so my name's on there twice. The second time I lose the trophy to Corey Summers, who goes on and cashes in on Just Insane. I beat Corey Summers at a Gusher Days show, win the title again, which leads to me having a year-long, I don't even know exactly how long, it was over a year, run. I think I won it in like June, I think, because we had to do a June Gusher Day show.
Because it was trying to come back from COVID.
Right. It was June or July. I remember it was hot and it was muggy.
Hades.
And everybody just was. I remember I wrestled Chris Grimes in the opening show, and I remember after the match I was laying down on the grass. I was looking up in the sky, and it was a hot sunny day. And Max Navarro stood above me, and he goes, and I'm out of breath, I'm dying, and he goes, "You're just too old for this." And I said, "I think you might be right. I think you might be right." And that's when I started thinking, maybe he is right. Maybe I am just a little too old for this. Because if I'm talking to a regular person who's been wrestling for 2 years, and they're 36, oh, it's brand new. Oh, you're just 37, you're just 38. Oh, you got plenty of time. No, bro, you don't understand. I've been doing this for 20 years. So there's a difference. My body has seen a lot and done a lot, and it hurts. So I was laying on the ground, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe you're right.
So we blame Max Navarro.
We blame Max Navarro for bringing it up.
So we keep Max Navarro away.
So I'm still wrestling the next show, the same Gusher Days. We have the really quick match with Corey Summers. I roll him up. I win the title. All said and done. It's all fun. It's all fine. We get back. That's when I start realizing that singles matches are a lot harder than tags. I wasn't breathing properly, right? Wrestling. And if I'm in a mask, which is funny, I can wrestle better, and I could breathe clearly in a mask than being Sean Cordova. And I'll tell you,
Does it made you control your breathing?
it made me control my breathing, and it's weird because as Sean Cordova, I'll run bam, 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 and then I would say, oh, I need to breathe, but I've already taken, 4 or 5 hits on the mat, and now I'm out of breath, and now I'm huffing and I'm puffing, and I'm out of, something's not right. But if I'm wearing a mask, it's something's different. Like I have to control it. So as we go on, I'm the champion, and we're doing the things. So we get to April of 2022. And I make a joke to Chris Preston, and I go, you know what would be a really good final match for me? And this is before Gusher Days, a couple months. We already knew what we were kind of gonna do. I said I would like to fight a young guy, a veteran, and another veteran, and then me. maybe like a 4-way. He said, okay. I said, I don't know, someone like an Aaron Storm, a Chris Preston, maybe a Corey Summers. That would be a good little match, like 4-way. Mm-hmm. And that match happened at Gusher Days. And the night before that, I had said, that's a good match. He goes, a good match for what? I said, that could be a good ending. He goes, ending for who? I don't know. I'm just throwing out some shit. And he goes, and it kind of clicks. He's like, are you talking about like retirement? I'm like, nah. Because before that, even when I brought the retirement up, because retirement in wrestling is never
retirement.
But when I brought up the retirement, I always thought it'd be like a road, it's not just one match can be the end all. It's got to be like a road. Like I want to fight you, and I want to fight you, and I want to fight you on the road to retirement. But the problem that I faced was a lot of the guys that I would have done that with were gone. So I had Corey, I had Chris, and I had Aaron Storm all in one match. So I'm thinking that could be it. I had planned to do that because I wanted to do that, but that show got canceled. I believe.
I think it got postponed a week, and then the postponement was when y'all were out of town.
Yep. So it never happened. So as I'm the LOL champion, I'm running that across my head, like maybe this is it. And then September rolled around of that year, 2022, and I was mentally, I was spent. I was. There, like I said, there was no one that I could figure out what I wanted to do. Because here's how LOL was. I would find opponents, and I would have rivalries with them. I'd have feuds with them. So, like, say, me and Justin Sane, or me and John Famous, or me and Chris Preston, or me and Corey Summers, and we would run me and Mongoose, we'd run like 6 months programs with these guys. So that's how I would always talk to Hunter D. Preston. That's how I would stay out of limbo. Because in wrestling, you never want to be in limbo. Whereas you don't have a feud and you don't have anything, you're just having matches. I didn't want to just have a match just to be having a match.
Easily forgotten.
Yes, I don't want to be in 6-mans. I don't want to be in 6-ways. I don't want to be in 5-ways where they don't have a purpose. I want to have purpose. Make it a number one contenders match. Make it for something. Not just, hey, you're in a 5-way match and there's nothing for you. It's just we had 5 guys and here you go. Yeah. I didn't want to be in that situation, so I always made myself, hey, I want to wrestle. Let me feud with Keith Blaylock. That's 9 months I could do something with him. Let me feud with Corey Summers or Chaz Thomas, and that's how we would run from 13 to 22. And then I realized that, you know what? There's no one coming in that I want to wrestle. I did want to do that Chasers match, but because that didn't happen, they were good guys. I was good guys. We were never going to have that moment. Mm-hmm. So I was like, maybe I'm done. I lost the title to Chris, and I went home. And I remember I have a Dropkick Daily zine, and I wrote an article in the back, and I said, I have never not had another show. Like John Cena would always say, my best match is my next match, mm-hmm. right? So I was always, my next show, I'll do this. I didn't have that next show. I'm done. I'm not coming to October. My September was my last show. I didn't have bookings, in Arkansas or Mississippi or Louisiana. It was it. I'm done. So I never even wrote. I didn't go to Facebook and write a status like, "Oh, I'm done, guys. I'm retirement." I never said nothing. I just ghosted. Mm-hmm. I told the people that I told that, hey, I'm done, and that was it. And that's all. There was no need to say retirement because that's not official in this business. No one retires in the indie wrestling.
Right.
You may get hurt. You may get like I was mentally drained, but you don't actually say I'm retired and then just be done. It's not a thing.
And 15 stinking months later.
Right. I get a call.
Okay.
So after I quote unquote retired from wrestling, I set up my ring with my kids, Trent and Stefan, and we started training weekly. So we're training at weekly, you know, Keelix, Corey Summers, my kids, and we're doing all this stuff. And I'm still staying in the wrestling. I'm just not taking any bookings. So 15 months later, I get a call, and I told Andrew, Corey Summers, if I ever got a call, I'll listen. And I told him I needed a call from either two people. It wasn't Slim Matthew. It wasn't someone like Mongoose. It needed to be from Chris Preston or it needed to be from Justin Sane. That was it. Justin Sane calls me.
My calls wasn't good enough.
No. You tried. No, let me.
I feel you. I got blown off too.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. What happened was, you invited me one time to the dinner. We had a dinner, the Christmas dinner. I said, "Hey, I'm not invited," and you said, "You got an
everybody's invited. They put it in the locker room.
You got an invite from me," and I said, "But I'm not in the locker room." And you said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm out of the locker room because I'm not in LOL no more." So you said, "Oh," and this was like,
2 months later.
2 months later.
This is 2022.
Yeah.
December
so
2022.
I left in September, and the dinner was in December, and you said, "Well, you have an invite from me." It's not how it works. I needed an invite from someone else. So I told you I needed a call, and I got that call from Justin Sane. It came on a Thursday night, about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'm in the kitchen folding clothes, and I get this call, and I look at the phone number, and it's an unknown number. I'm not answering that phone.
Hey, you don't answer the phone when it's known. No.
So I get the call, and it's an unknown number. It probably said something like I don't know, maybe it said Marshall, but I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of random numbers where they make it look like it's a 903 number, like it's local, and it's clearly not local. And so I get this call, and I let it go to voicemail, and he leaves me a voicemail. He says, "Hey, Cordova, this is Justin Sane. Call me when you can." So you know me, I don't like talking on the phone. So I'm like, okay, well, it's Thursday night. I knew there was a show Saturday. So I'm like, okay, what could he be wanting? Maybe he wanted some input or something. Because, I knew he was booking the show, so maybe he wanted some input of something. Call him back. His first question out of his mouth is, would you still be I don't even know how the question was. It was like, do you have any plans of being a wrestler ever again for League of Lines? Something like that. And I said, well, maybe if the idea's right. He told me the idea, and he said, just let me know if you want to be a part of Saturday's show. I said, okay. So I walk into the living room, and I'm talking to Stephanie, and I go, well, do I want to do it? If it had been like a week before the show, I could have probably justified my reasons. Oh, maybe I don't want to do it. And, I could have been wishy-washy. But because it was Thursday night, and he needed an answer quickly, I text Corey Summers, and I said, hey, I think I might be going back to League of Lines. He said, what happened? Because you talked to me like a month before, and I was...
Every stinking month.
Right.
But
a month before, we were sitting at a Union Grove's Lions high school game, and you said, when you coming back? Like in a playful manner. And I said, it's not happening. And you said, man, you should come back. And I said, there ain't nothing. Because at that time, there was nothing for me to do. Mm-hmm. I had no ideas for myself. I had no plans of where we were heading. I was done. So I talked to Corey Summers. I said, hey, I think I might be coming back. He said, just let me know, and maybe I can work out something for me too. Because we knew we just needed that call, or we needed that motivation. That's really what it is. The need to be needed. The need to be needed. That's good. So I text him. I believe I texted him that night. I might have texted him the next day, but I think I texted him that night. And I said, "Hey, put me in." It's like, "Put me in, coach. Let's get the ball rolling." So we get the ball rolling, and I'm there. I come to the show, and everything works out. Like, I would say like I never left, but there was people that I was familiar with, mm-hmm. And it was, everyone had already, a lot of the people had left, the Keith and the Dylans and the Mongoose and all them had left, but I was like, well, maybe I am needed, and that kind of got me happy. And then Corey Summers popped in January, and I made the call to him, and I got him to be my tag team partner, like old times, the ones who matter. And we went far in the tournament. We did. But the
Some
Sons
of
of
us believe
Plunder,
should have went further, but
Sons of Plunder took us out.
right.
And I was rooting for the Plunder, but I also was rooting for the Buddies because man, the Buddies, and that's a whole nother avenue. That's another feud that I had in LOL. The Buddies, man. Me and Danny Burrows, we had a 2 out of 3 falls match, and then me and CT Jones had a dog collar match, and those. I love those guys. I'm not gonna lie, dude. Those guys. Every time I see them, there are certain wrestlers when you see them backstage, you just smile. You're happy to see them, and it's the Buddies. It's Court Caution. It's Corey Summers. They bring light into the room. Like I don't know how it is or how they do it, but it's like they never meet a stranger. It's almost like that. I always said the same thing with like Max Navarro. We could be out there randomly in Dallas, and he could just randomly talk to somebody, and I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Stranger danger.
And yeah, right. And he's like, he's cool, man. And I'm like, and he'd be like, "Oh, that guy's name is Elroy." And I'm like, "How do you know?" Because I've been talking to him. I know his life story. And I'm like, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" And we're like in a line at McDonald's or something. I'm like, what are we talking about? But like, he had never met a stranger. And those guys are like, they bring the light to the room, man. And that's really what I needed. Because when I was leaving League of Legends, I wouldn't say I was in a dark place, but I was in a place where like there was I didn't see. And here's where it happened. So you know how you're in a tunnel, and you know the tunnel's ending. So at one point in the time of me leaving, a question came into my head was, what's the end game? And Andrew, Corey Summers, was like, we had never thought about that ever. And he was like, what is the end game? Like, are we going to do this? Because I had never thought, when am I going to finish, right? Until then. That's when the the blocks were starting to come about. And I was like, wait, what is the end game to this? Because I didn't have an end game. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know when this was going to be over for me, right? So as I was going to age 40, and now Corey Summers is 30, like he thought he was done too, but now he's 30 and I'm 39. So now it's like, well, maybe there is more to this story.
Right.
And that's where we lead today.
Let's go ahead and give the guys props.
Yep.
I'm going to make fun of myself in the process, and then we're going to bring somebody else up. For 10 years, at least, once a month, I've tagged you in a post, and there's been a hashtag TEW Rebirth.
Right.
Begged, pleaded. Trenton gets old enough to where you're starting to train him in the backyard.
Yep.
The ring is up.
Yep.
It doesn't have cobwebs on it anymore.
Right.
So we're starting shows, right? No, man, it ain't happening. I'm just training my boys. Damn it.
Yeah.
So.
It never came to my head. That's not something that I wanted to do.
And then all of a sudden, somebody who we have to remember his name.
Yes.
Gives you a call.
Yes.
Tell us the story how this happened.
Okay, so Colton Shane, he's all about Facebook Messenger, and his thing is he does voice memos.
Because he can't type. No.
So, but his voice, like sometimes if you read a text message, you read it in your own voice.
Right.
And you could read it any way you want to read it. But when you hear a voice memo, you hear them. So you hear
their heart.
You hear their heart, their conviction in their their voice, and you're like, okay. So he calls me, he sends me the voice memo, and he's like, maybe it's time, man. 2024, TEW, and this is late 2023. And I'm like, and I tell him, I said, who are we having the reunion show for? Are we having it for the fans, or are we having it for us? Because at the end of the day, it's for us. There are no fans, right? There are the fans. The fans that we had are grown up, and they're Marcos, and there's Kane, and they're what, 22 years old. So those fans that we had, that they were little children, are no longer children. And the drunks, they may not even be alive. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Claywater, we'll find new.
Do you understand what I'm saying though? Like I don't know. Like my Uncle Jimmy is still around, but I don't know if he can, still come out and see the shows. I mean, he might be there. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, who are we having the reunion show for? So I was still kind of like, man, I don't know. I'm weighing the options. So I start thinking about it, and I start I sent a message to Max Navarro. He's 100% ready to go. Okay? I sent it to Court Caution. 100% on board. All right. Things are working out. I knew you were on board. I knew Kane Matthew was on board. I knew Corey Summers was on board. So everyone is, the things are working out. Michael Cross, Tiger T. And then here we are a month away, and about, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, I get a text message from Max Navarro. He says, hey, I'll be at the show, but I can't wrestle. I'm like, okay, what's wrong? I need double knee replacement surgery. Okay. He said, yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to get it. But I'm out, but I'll still be there. So he'll be at the show. And then we have Charles, who is MIA. We don't know about him. But everyone else, as of right now, is looking good. So if you're out there, and for some reason I haven't messaged you, which I believe I've messaged every single person. If I did not message you, April 20th, Gusher Days, 3 p.m., we're having the reunion.
I've been in the back of my mind trying to figure out a nice, pretty way to bow this thing up,
right,
kind of thing. We didn't hit on your writing career.
No.
We have 4 books out.
Yeah,
that have been published, and a 5th one in the works now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have a TEW book, another book about the wrestling. You can count the trivia books.
Right.
I have
Book of Cordova.
I have a book of Cordova, and I have 2 poetry books.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Gotcha.
And I am currently in the works of writing another one, and I'm about 175 pages in, and it's going to be, I guess, quote unquote fiction of the Ultimo Astro. So the thing about Ultimo Astro is I've actually have been Ultimo Astro before I was Sean Cordova. He came around in like 2001.
Mm-hmm.
But Ultimo has had a long story where it's not just the wrestling. Like I can tell you a lot of things, but like he's had a life.
Don't spoil the book. Make him buy the book.
He has life experiences.
There you go.
Yeah.
When you kind of shared everybody that was going to be your last match, I hit up your wife Stephanie, and I hit you up trying to get this list, and I did what I would hope make you proud by sharing your accolades.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I'm in the middle of this thing spouting it out, and you did your little smirk and cocked your head to the side and go, that's a lot.
Right, because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting you just to talk about the League of Lions, but then you brought in the Texas Elite Wrestling, the Bayou Independent Wrestling, and the NAWA, and I was like, oh yeah, well yeah, if you're counting that, I've had a lot of things.
It's been a lot.
But the thing about it, as you're going day by day, you don't think about, oh, I was the first BIW Deep South Heritage Champion, or I was this, or I was that, or oh, I had that partner, or I had that partner. I won the tag titles with that guy, and you're like, okay, yeah.
A lot of reminiscing going on there.
Yeah, okay.
And then one more thing that I'd like to kind of end this with, unless you want to add something at the end, but you said, who are we doing the reunion show for?
Right.
Okay. If we could get a close-up right here. What is there, about 5 or 6 of us now? I was just a dad taking his kids to backyard wrestling, and then we realized that backyard wrestling was a cuss word because this is independent wrestling that just happens to be in a pasture.
Yeah, the minor league.
Okay.
Yeah.
You allowed me to be a part as a fan. You put out a blanket email needing help as a referee shirt, and I was like, dude.
Referees need apply. Yeah.
Why not? Why not? And then that lasted for 3 months.
You came up, and Robert Wells came up.
And both Grimes.
And the
Grimes. 4
Grimes.
of us started the same show with TEW.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, because referees were hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Good referees were hard to find.
Right.
Because you had a lot of the fans that thought they could do it, and they thought, oh, it's only just counting to the 10, right? That's all it is. Counting to 3, no big deal. Referees have such a difficult job.
Mm-hmm. Again, investing in your community. You put on a show at a school for a PTO fundraiser.
Yep.
Put a mic in my hand for the first time. Some people say that was probably the worst day in history. But you allowed me to be a part of this this special brotherhood. So who are we doing this reunion show for? Doing it for people like me who appreciate the hell out of you.
So
and
here's
what
a question
mean
for
to
you.
us.
Will you be a part of the show?
I don't know, man. I hadn't gotten that. I hadn't gotten that message.
You haven't got the message.
I hadn't got that message. He just knew I was in, but I hadn't
Yeah.
been invited.
I think you'll be there with the microphone in hand.
I think I might have